Hello everyone, this is Claudia and the following is my presentation on the association I selected, which is Reforma, the National Association to Promote Library and Information Services to Latinos and the Spanish-speaking. Junot Diaz, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, recently gave a talk at the ALA Midwinter Conference, and he said, "A librarian gave me the gift of libraries, and to this day I consider it one of the greatest gifts I've ever received." I want you to try and remember and imagine your first visit to a library. I bet you felt welcomed and filled with curiosity. Now imagine that every single book and piece of information is in a language not your own. No one that works there speaks your language. In the wealth of knowledge and resources that are at your hand's reach, can you fall into discovery in the full sense of the word? Junot Diaz also described his experience of not seeing people of color represented in books he read. And he described it as living next to the ocean and never being able to put your feet in. I think we can all agree that in order for libraries to thrive, it's essential that library professionals connect with the communities they serve. It's important to note that getting to know a community means understanding its culture. So, who are Latinos? Certainly, they're not a single ethnic group, but rather comprised of many ethnic origins from Latin American countries. Not every Latino is a Mexican, and not every Latino is a Puerto Rican. And not all Latinos speak the same Spanish. Some speak native dialect. The term is much more complex if you think about, for example, a Mexican American in California or in Texas or Illinois. All have different origins and experiences. And that's because each Latin American country has its own cultural identity. Before I get started in telling you about the association, I feel it's important to take a look at some statistics that hopefully will give you a big picture as to how associations like Reforma that are specific to diversity is essential for library service today and in the future. According to the Pew Research Center, as of 2015, the Latino population reached almost 56.5 million in the U.S. The Department of Professional Employees stated for that same year that there were 166,000 librarians, of which 4.8% were Latino. If we do some math here, that would mean for just over 7,000 Latinos, there is one library professional. These numbers represent the demand for such an association like Reforma. Reforma's English translation is to reform, to improve, which is what Dr. Arnulfo Trejo, a professor of library science at the University of Arizona, wanted for Latino library professionals. And so in 1971, he founded Reforma. It was a time where activists were speaking out for Mexican American civil rights, also known as the Chicano movement in the Southwest. Issues at the forefront were issues similar that are still relevant today, and they were discrimination, immigration, farmers' workers' rights. And Dr. Trejo was inspired by this movement, and after watching a short film based on Rodolfo Gonzalez's poem, I Am Joaquin, which is a poem that touched on the cultural identity and the struggles of Chicanos. Dr. Trejo indeed saw the need for representation, and not just representation, but support, education, Spanish literature, and library services geared to the Spanish speaking. Not much is written about Latinos in libraries prior to the 70s. A pioneer in the movement of library services for Latinos was Pura Belpre. In 1921, she became the first Latina, a Puerto Rican librarian for the New York Public Library. The scarcity of literature leaves a question in many, and myself, to whether there were others like Belpre connecting to their Latino communities during her time. Dr. Arnulfo Trejo recognized this need to create an organization that filled a void, this cultural disconnect that librarians refer to even being part of ALA. Reforma is an affiliate of ALA, and I'll later share how the two collaborate. Currently, there are 26 national chapters across the United States, each pushing forward Reforma's goals in their local libraries and institutions. Just as diverse as the Latino and Spanish-speaking community is, I found myself interested in viewing some of the national chapters' websites and Facebook pages, just to see how it is that they carried out Reforma's goals. And they each have their unique focus, relevant to their communities, and the issues that concern them. The following I'll be covering is Reforma's goals. And we'll start with the development of Spanish language and Latino-oriented library collections. It used to be that library services and materials were English only, but Professor Trejo and others like Pura Belpre saw the importance in meeting the needs of the Spanish-speaking and connecting with the library resources. To do that, Reformistas, or association members, have worked on building these collections and also material where Latinos can see a reflection of themselves in literature. The next, recruitment of bilingual, multicultural library personnel. Reforma members actively educate, engage, and support those who are of diverse backgrounds, as well as anyone interested in working with the Latinos and the Spanish-speaking. Whether through scholarships, networking, and also through their work with their communities and students, we are putting a diverse stamp on the library profession for others' awareness, which ties into the next goal. Promotion of public awareness of libraries and librarianship among Latinos. I personally, growing up as a first-generation Mexican American, had no idea that librarianship existed or what it looked like, much less that it was a possible career for me. This is what I generally found in the research, and I related to it. Now, having worked for my library for 10 years, I can see just in my own experience how many more Latinos are interested in the library profession and what that means on the other side, where it means and how we engage the Latino community and educate them about the library and how it serves them too. It's a real draw for the Spanish speaking where they see a familiar face or they hear someone who can speak in their language. Next is advocacy on behalf of the information needs of the Latino community. Advocacy on behalf of the information needs of Latino community. Reforma works to preserve existing resources that address Latino community needs. Each community needs are different, and members reflect this through library services and programs. On the Reforma's website, you can also find publications and statements on the association's stance on important issues. And finally, liaison to other professional organizations. Reforma bridged the cultural disconnect for Latino professionals between bigger associations such as that of ALA. Reforma also provides national information through its support network. Moving along, Reforma provides resources and opportunities such as the Reforma newsletter, which highlights current issues, events, and resources. There's also an online forum in which members post library and other related job listings. You can find publications ranging from resources, guides, presentations, Spanish library resources, book lists, links to resources, and other ALA affiliates and institutions. National chapters as well as Reforma National put together workshops for library professionals and support staff. The association, like others, serves as a support network for library professionals, and Latino library professionals contribute to this effort by sharing their knowledge and best practices. There are also opportunities to volunteer in Reforma's committees. There's quite a number of them, 19 to be exact, and they include such as selecting and reviewing awards and scholarships. There's also the Children and Young Adult Services Committee, the Program Committee, which works on programs presented at conferences. And to join Reforma, I found their fees pretty accessible, whether for individuals or institutions. And they currently have over 800 active members, and I actually reached out through the Reforma Facebook page to find this current number of members, and they were really helpful, which was nice. They even offered to help me if I needed any other information. Reforma events. As an ALA affiliate, Reforma hosts workshops at the ALA annual as well as the midwinter. Their Reforma National is scheduled this September in Puerto Rico, and last year they had to cancel their conference due to the hurricanes that devastated Puerto Rico and the Caribbean. And coming up, I'll talk about one of Reforma's current projects that came about from this. Local chapters also host events as well as the annual and for example, they do Spanish book fairs and cultural relevant programs at a local level. Next year we have some benefits in being involved with Reforma. There's scholarships and awards as well as some grants. The first Rose Trevino Memorial Scholarship is for those pursuing an MLS in Children and Young Adult Services. There's the Reforma Scholarship, which meets the needs of Spanish speaking by supporting individuals who are pursuing an MLS or PhD degree, and in order to be considered, you can be either part-time or full-time in an accredited institution. There's also the Librarian of the Year Award named after the founder, and a Lifetime Achievement Award named after Elizabeth Martinez, who was an executive director at ALA, and she also there established the ALA Spectrum Award, which is aimed towards diverse professionals. This award, it's awarded for librarians who demonstrate distinction in the field over a long period of time. And finally, I'm going to share with you how Reforma puts into action its goals and its efforts. And we've all heard something along the lines of change doesn't happen without action. Reforma actively works to be a voice for issues that affect the Latino community. They voice their support as well as provide information on issues such as language and immigration rights. Immigration concerns are critical in our time. And in 2014, Reforma started Children in Crisis Project, which works to provide books and backpacks for unaccompanied refugee children. They were able to collect donations and provide books to locations along the border, the US-Mexico border, such as a refugee shelter and the McAllen, Texas Border Patrol Processing Center. National chapters continue to work on this project in their own communities, and recently the Orange County chapter of California from Reforma delivered Spanish books for kids and teens, served at a nonprofit agency that provides social and mental health services. And lastly, there's the Adopt a Library program. That's the most recent. It's a collaboration between the ALA and Reforma. Like I had mentioned before, Reforma's national conference had gotten canceled due to the hurricanes last September, and the collaboration started the Adopt a Library program in an effort to restore and rebuild the libraries affected by this travesty of the national disasters. I hope this presentation has provided a window as to the significance of this association and its relevancy in librarianship. I've ended with my resources and website resources that I hope you find interesting if you want to do some additional reading. And I thank you for your time.